Hi there, and welcome back to CKM Red Rugby League. The Bulldogs and the South Sydney Rabbitohs have just finished their game, so that sees out round 8. So that can only mean that it is time for our round review. Joining me is one happy tipper, Mr. Luke Jobson. How are you doing?
7 of 8. I'm 2-1 down, but I got my first point on the board, so I'm happy in that regard. And it's been a great week on the punt. How about you, mate?
I don't want to talk about it. I'm forced to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Oh, okay then. So we start with the first game of the round, and it was the blockbuster that everyone tipped it to be, the Melbourne Storm versus Sydney Roosters. The only thing that could divide them was a late penalty goal, 27-25 in Golden Point. What's your thought process on that game?
For 70 minutes, the Roosters had that. For 70 minutes, they had it in the bag. It was done. Melbourne looked in all sorts. And then they threw Riley Jacks on around about the same time that Josh Morris scored his second try. Smith went into hooker, and that was the ball game. Melbourne just came screaming back. Jerome Hughes grabbed his second try. Movorowski over 2 minutes later. It was just a complete capitulation from the Roosters. And, yeah, I mean, who would have thought it? We'll get to Golden Point in a second, but Cleary from 35 out, sinks a beauty. Then Pappenhausen, his first in his NRL career, splits them. We go to Golden Point, and to be fair, I think Melbourne, once it hit Golden Point, we're going to win no matter what. But Jake Friend with an absolute brain fart there, it just cost Storm. Oh, cost the Roosters, sorry.
Yeah, do you know what? I agree to an extent. I think if Friend lets him play the ball, I think Melbourne shift it and they score anyway. So in the grand scheme of things, not too big, but yeah, you don't want to be giving away a penalty on these stakes. The Roosters, in the first half, that game was played at origin speed and origin standard. In the second half, the Roosters were trying to catch a bar of soap. They were, for whatever reason, the handling went to pot. I mean, I think they were at 88% completion at the end of the first half. By the time the game had finished, by the time the game had finished, they were down at 64%. And our Roosters team completing at 64% is virtually unheard of in the last 3 seasons. They've been that good, even in games that they have scraped by. They've always completed relatively highly, and that's a worrying thought for a lot of teams in the comp, because if a Roosters team that only completes at 64% can take a team like Melbourne to Golden Point, you're all in trouble when they turn up, and we've seen that.
Yeah, it's a scary thought for sure. But look, you got to give credit to the Storm. They came back. They, like I said, down, what was it, 12, 10? What was it? Yeah, 12 points with 10 minutes left. They come back. They absolutely demolished the Roosters in that final bit. And look, they got up. It's a warning. That's a huge warning to the rest of the competition. We'll get to Parramatta later on. But, they came up against a really strong side last week, the Roosters and Parramatta, and were on the right end of it. And they've essentially had that finish that they gave Parramatta put back on them. So it's going to be interesting next week when they come up against the Cowboys to see how they respond.
Yeah. I tell you what, Melbourne have lost their surprise card now, because everybody was looking to the halves. Everybody was looking at Cameron Smith ready for that drop goal, and all of a sudden they send it back to Pappenhausen. Like that, as soon as Melbourne get in a tight game now, everybody's watching Pappenhausen. But it's frightening to think that they've got someone of that ability who's not even a recognised drop goal, a specialist. So, yeah, I can't see that surprise play coming off again. But Pappenhausen slaughtered that kick.
The final thing I think they have to point out on with the Storm is not only do they have Pappenhausen now, I guess, that can kick a field goal. You've got Cam Smith. Jerome Hughes isn't a mug either. He's got a very good kicking game himself. So there's 3 of them. And then, of course, are you really a half if you can't kick? So, if worse came to worse, Riley Jacks, who set up Hughes' second try with a beautiful crossfield kick. So it's an interesting one. It's turning out to be a real tussle for those top 4 spots.
Yeah, I tell you what, the big turning point for me in that game was Brandon Smith just lifting in that last 15 minutes. It seems that a lot of people talk about Cameron Smith and his influence. You look at how much Brandon Smith lifted that side with his leg speed, and I think he was taking 2 carries a set at one point. His work ethic and his drive really lifted the Storm. I think he was the founder of that turnaround. Really good stuff from him.
Oh, look, they love the cheese down there. So, yeah, he's the future of that club. It leaves Cameron Smith, I think, with a really tough choice if he hangs around for the end of the season and then goes one more because he can, or if he steps aside or goes to another club and lets Smith and Harry Grant take the reins.
Yeah. Okay, so then we move on to the Raiders and the Dragons. The Raiders running out 22-16 winners, not in the most convincing of fashion. It looked like a Dragons comeback was on the cards and they left it just a little too late. But the Dragons, what an improvement they've shown in the last few weeks. Really, really massive improvement.
I wasn't complaining. You saw the bet. I turned 5 into 260 with that one. So, Matthew Duffy, I love you. Get him up here. We want to give him a boof. But, yeah, the Raiders came out firing. It's probably their best attacking game in terms of an 80-minute performance for the last couple of weeks. Not withholding that they scored 24 against Para. What was that, last week? You could argue that for about 60 minutes of that game, Canberra's attack was shot. We got this one right in terms of the Dragons line. We both, I said 12.5, you said 10.5. It was looking iffy, but that second half, the Dragons came out with some fire. Croker's try ended up sealing it, but this Dragons side, you can't sneeze at now. This isn't just a blowover team. Team's going to really have to start taking this Dragons team seriously. And you look at it, when Ben Hunt comes on, their attack just sparks up. And it bodes the question, I think, of now, instead of Hunt coming off the bench, do you start him at 9, put McInnes in at 13, knowing that McInnes can play 80?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, if you were to pinpoint any moment that really drop ball off the goal line drop out, I think if he keeps that ball and the Dragons get a good set out of it, they potentially score. Also, it's tough. I mean, the Dragons, they're far from polished, but they're definitely looking a better side for it. I agree that Hunt maybe needs to be starting 9, but I do think that the impact of him coming from the bench is making a massive difference, and it gives him a chance to look at how the game's panning out and really take control when he comes on. But yeah, I agree that the Dragons now are not going to be an easy tip for or against for probably the next 10 games if they carry on the way they have been.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, I don't have the ladder pulled up, so we'll pull that up very quickly. But the Dragons 13th, two wins out of the 8. Well, at least before I think the start of this round. I don't know if the NRL ladder's been updated, but you could, if results go their way, they could maybe be in with a shot for a late dash at the finals, but we'll see about that. Those games that they play against, a team that isn't attacking well, they have to show up for the full 80. They can't pull out 20 minutes of magic and expect to come off better in most games. Yeah,
let's talk about the Raiders attack for a second, because George Williams had probably his best game so far, maybe barring his performance against Melbourne, but got his 8th assist of the season off the boot. He looks good when he's running the ball. He's got a deft kicking game. and the Raiders love to expose it. But Josh Hodgson needs a little more help. His fifth play option wasn't fantastic this week. It seems that either teams have studied up and figured him out, or he's just not having the impact that he was a season, 2 seasons ago. And he just needs a little bit more help and a little bit more creativity around him. I mean, it doesn't help when you lose one of your more consistent props in Sia Soliola to a horrific facial fracture. I mean, we've seen the pictures. He split him in half there. But yeah, Hodgson needs a little bit more support for me. He needs some more options going left and right. So
the interesting thing that Ricky pulled this week is benching Papi and starting Gula. And for me, that worked. Now, whether he can do that again next week, assuming Gula is able to play, that's a different story. But I thoroughly liked that, that move by Ricky Stewart. Gula, had a great impact early, was on for 25, 30 minutes, very strong in defense, and it tires out those middle forwards so Papali can come in and just barrel through. It sucks that, it's an Origin prop that's being played off the bench, essentially. I think it's a bit of an ego hit for Papali, but yeah, that's a super coach move. That's something that coaches may not always consider, but we saw over the weekend that it works.
Yeah, and now the Raiders are starting to lose some of that forward depth of theirs because they've lost Horsburgh now. Still no Bateman, and especially now with the news that he's going back to Wigan as well. A lot of fans in particular are calling to not play him at all this season and just get him out of his contract. Gula, as you mentioned, picked up an ankle injury. It looked like a high ankle sprain with the way it twisted from another drop tackle. So hopefully nothing too serious for him. But you've got to start thinking that the Raiders are going to start running out of forwards at some point.
Well, they have Sutton. Who did they have on the bench this week? They had Ryan Sutton. They had
Papali, Havili,
who's been playing essentially as a prop. He bulked up over the off season.
Yeah, God. Hudson Young started. I can't for the life of me remember who they had as their 17.
Tapane.
Yeah.
So
Tapane play loose.
He can. Yeah. He's more of a lock.
Yeah.
But with the depth issues that the Raiders have at the moment, he may not have a choice.
Yeah. It's going to be a testing few weeks for the Raiders, but I think now that the Bateman drama is behind them and they can start to look at what their roster looks like for next season as well and focus on getting this season done. Is it bold to say that the Raiders don't make the 8? Potentially, if they keep on. The argument here is, was that a really good Dragons performance or was that a really poor Raiders performance? I think it was 50-50. But I think the Raiders do need to figure themselves out before they even look like they're going to make the 8 this year.
The Raiders were down to what? 2 on the bench for the last 20 minutes?
Yeah.
That's what you put it down to. They had no depth in the last 20. The Dragons forward, you never want to come up against at the best of times. Yeah, you still have, despite them being 13th, you still have Vaughan and Frizzell screaming at you. Trent Merrin is an international or a former Origin and international player. At the best of times, you don't want them trying to steamroll you, and then you have the Sims that try to barge their way through. Like, it's a strong forward pack. And as a result, in that last 20 minutes, with that lack of bench depth, they were able to go outside. They were able to break some spaces as, the wings, the centers, the 5'8s had to jam their way in. And, you saw it with the last try. That should have been an easy tackle for, I forget who missed it. It might have been Whiten. They had Curtis Scott. That was who was on the bench that we were forgetting.
Curtis Scott was the final change, yeah.
And, it should have been an easy tackle for Dufty's last try, but Aitken just busted his way through, easy as you like. Dufty on the inside, followed up, got it under the posts. It's It's not so much that I think it was a bad Canberra performance or a good Dragons performance, more that the Dragons were able to capitalise on the lack of depth in that last 20 minutes. But anyways, please be done. Can we be done with this? We have a very exciting game to get to next.
Fine. We talk about Parramatta and the Cowboys.
Yes,
I tipped the upset. You back the Eels. Didn't work out for me. Again, we saw it. Again, we saw it with a game of two halves for the Cowboys, which really worried me at halftime when they were 16-4 down, because you sat there going, right, is that their good half or is that their bad half? Turns out that 16-4 down at halftime against Parramatta was their good half. And what happens to the Cowboys? They either do really well at halftime in their second half, or just really awful. It was the same against the Tigers, played for 40 minutes, and that's it. They shut up shop. Like, what is going on? Be a good team or be a terrible team. Don't be both.
Let me pose this question to you. Who was on the side of Micah Sivo?
On that side, Felt and Masters in the centre.
So I saw a beautiful stat. I can't remember which Cowboys group it was or who posted it, but credit to one of the Cowboys Facebook groups. Isan Masters and Kyle Felt combined have been liable for 21 tries this year. 5 of the 7 tries that Parramatta scored went down that side. Michael Jennings opening up in the 10th minute, beautiful ball from the King. Sivo again, 21st minute, same thing, great cutout ball finding the winger, and then Micah had an absolute field day in that second half. It was, I promise you, it was the most beautiful way to break my Bankwest virginity. It was delightful. I'm not going to harp too much on Parramatta for now. Obviously, I don't want to sound biased. It's well known they're my boys. I love my Eels, but Masters, maybe not so much Felt, but Masters needs to be dropped. Paul Green needs to take a stand and drop Isan Masters, because he had a superb first couple of games for the Cowboys, and then it's all gone to crap. A lot of the time, and we know how dangerous that Jennings-Sivo combination is, but Parramatta had a halfback who essentially could only pass one way in Jai Field. And congrats to him on scoring his first Parramatta try. So after the first 15 minutes, the Cowboys should have known, okay, they're going to target Masters, the side with Masters and Felt. The most prolific try scorer in the league is out that way. We need to make sure that we're good in defense. But nope, Masters kept coming in. He kept giving Sivo plenty of opportunities. Clint Gutherson just kept setting them up on a dime. I mean, what can you do? Clint Gutherson probably his best game as a Parramatta Eel. Sivo, I'm pretty sure unless he scored 4 against Brisbane last year in the elimination final, I'm pretty sure that's his first game with 4 tries. It's scary for Cowboys fans, because like you said, it's 16-4. If that's their good half against Parramatta, who, had a superb offensive game, but, still had their sets where they were pretty clunky. If they defend like that against the Roosters or the Storm, Munster in or Munster out, that's going to be 60. That's going to be 60. So,
yeah, I don't see the Cowboys making the 8 this year. That's dead set. I was iffy on whether the Raiders will. The Cowboys don't, unless when Michael Morgan comes back, it sparks some sort of halfback masterclass and everything clicks. The Cowboys dead set do not make the 8 this year. I mean, as you mentioned there, Masters. I think the only reason that they don't drop Masters is that they don't have the depth at centres right now to basically, like, you're not going to pull Felt from the wing and use him as just a big bulky centre and put Lumalu outside him. It's put Tabuai-Fidow outside him. Who do they put in at centre there? Because they're strict for depth.
You switch Justin O'Neill. You put him in at centre next to Felt. Tabuai-Fidow goes to the wing. That would be what I do. I'm also not an NRL coach, and I really, honestly, couldn't tell you the Cowboys roster at the moment. So, I'll quickly pull that up. But off a whim, I couldn't tell you who they have right now.
No, and to be honest, I wouldn't even be comfortable putting Tabuai-Fidow on the wing right now. The Cowboys love to make meters coming out of their own half, and Tabuai-Fidow's not a meter maker. That's why they have players like Felt and O'Neill, who on those second and thirds, when you're on an exit set, making meters up and get you that 10, 15 meters. Tabuai-Fidow's going to hit the line and he's going to be overpowered because he's not big enough right now. His asset is speed and a little bit of sleight of hand, the same as Valentine Holmes, and that's what makes Holmes a really good fullback as a ball player.
The other option I think that you could do is Mitch Dunn played a lot of centre during his junior days. You could throw him in at centre. You lose that attacking threat and that offloading threat by dropping Masters, but you shore up that defense on that side. And if Felt then is responsible for a try, in all likelihood, you would think it's because Felt has tried to come in or not done his assignment. I'm looking at the roster now for the Cowboys. I mean, Justin O'Neill's listed as a centre. Obviously, he plays wing. Yeah. Otherwise, do you put Hampton on the wing and do you put Hampton in at centre? Otherwise, you're given Lemuelu his second game in the centres, or you bring in a debutant in Dejan Arce or Dan Russell. So,
yeah, I don't know, but something needs to get fixed up at the Cowboys. I mean, they've got a good squad. You look through their squad; it's a decent lineup. They got some good players, but just something's not going right, and I don't think it's the absence of Michael Morgan.
That helps. Oh, sorry, that hurts.
Okay.
That's their key playmaker.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Right. So then we will move to the Sharks and the Titans. The Sharks hitting 40 against the Titans there. 40 points to 10 winners. It's got to be said, Sean Johnson looked like he's coming back. He's listened to the critics. Yeah.
He's finally getting his game sorted. It's taken him a lot longer than it should have. It's a lot longer than it should have, but he's finally, starting to find that good balance that he spoke about on Fox Sports last week about, having a good kicking game, getting his passing game. He's kicking from the tee, 6 or 7. That's starting to get back towards his Warriors days, and the Sharks have finally found themselves a bit of a winning formula. Although, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, because this is one of the 2 games I wasn't able to watch. Matt Moylan, has he done his hammy again?
He has. He was chasing back and just pulled up short. And Moylan's hamstring, God almighty. What's the guy got to do to get a break at this point? I think Fox Sports pulled up. It's incredible that a player does their hamstring so much that Fox Sports have a statistic ready for when he does it again. And he missed a grand total of 11 games over the last 3 seasons due to hamstring problems.
Yep.
I think what it was the stat, which is a daunting prospect because Moylan, he's not knocking on. He's certainly got a few years left in him. But if that hamstring keeps on coming up the way it does, that's a problem because he didn't even look like he was in full flight when it went.
Yeah, look, last time he did his hamstring, I said it was time for him to retire. Now, I'm not going to say that because the way he's been playing the last couple of weeks, obviously he's been playing superbly. And, the more I think about it, look, I'm a 23-year-old nobody who's never played rugby league. I'm not exactly in a position to be telling players to retire. But, look, it's at the point. And I said this when he came back last time. He's going to last 2 or 3 games. He'll get hurt. Will Kennedy will have to come back in.
Will Kennedy lives in limbo right now. He is. I honestly don't get why a team like the Titans, when they were looking for a fullback to cover, I get that you got Brimson. Why the Titans were sniffing around Will Kennedy?
Because Kennedy, during his under 20 days, and he the son of Bubba Kennedy, a fantastic player back in the 70s and 80s. Kennedy only played fullback. I don't think he played wing. I don't think he played center. He's not a half. He's an out-and-out fullback. Now, Cronulla, I think, realised, and to the Titans to that extent too, realised that Thompson at least gives them that versatility of being able to flick between fullback and wing. Kennedy doesn't yet have that. Now, he's only 22. He's got plenty of time left in him, but he and the Sharks have to start thinking about whether Kennedy, who's only he's not on a large contract financially, he needs to figure out if he's going to stay and bide his time behind Moylan to cement that fullback spot, or if he goes somewhere else and competes for the number one jersey. I don't really know where would he go. Can't be the Broncos. They've got Tessie New up there, and I wouldn't want to go there at the best of times. The Titans have Brimson. You could say the Cowboys, but you've got Holmes, you've got Hammer, Drinkwater, and Morgan. Both have played fullback. Out of the Sydney clubs, there's no one.
Yeah,
and Melbourne, Munster, Pappenhausen, Holmes all played. New Zealand, RTS, Hiku, Beale.
Yeah, he's. This is the thing. Kennedy's a really good fullback, but he's not a world-class fullback, and that's the only thing that disadvantages him right now. He's a fullback that does the majority of things right, and now he has to just basically sit and wait, and he's essentially waiting for a Moylan injury. That's the only time he gets game time now, unless Moylan has a couple stinkers, or I don't know, he gets bumped up into the halves off the back of a Johnson or a Townsend injury. That's the only time Will Kennedy plays at this point, which is really unfortunate because he's a good player. But Moylan now needs to consider his options, because if your hamstring's going that often, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, not just now, but for life after footy as well.
The thing that the Sharks also need to consider is that potentially, if Fafita's Andrew Fafita, if he he'll keep going, and he's already said, look, I'm trying to do what I can to keep my knees going. But Fafita knows when he retires, it'll be medical, and the Sharks will be able to claim that because Fafita has the paperwork ready to go. Moylan could be a medical retirement, but it could. I don't know when Moylan's contract runs out. I've got a sneaking suspicion it's next year. It sounds right. But if that's the case, it could be that the Sharks just holding out for that year and a half and promising Kennedy, look, if you stay with us in 18 months, that number one jersey is yours because we're not going to offer Moylan a contract.
It's a tough one. I mean, it's always unfortunate when a player picks up injuries, especially when it's a long-term nagging injury as well that proves to be career limiting. But I mean, let's get off Moylan. Let's talk about the Sharks. They looked substantially better. Sean Johnson's running game coming on leaps and bounds, even bagging a try assist as well. It's like he's finally figured out that he is the Sean Johnson that was a superstar for the last 5-6 years.
You look at it, and for me, the two plays that I think highlight that is the Britton Nakora try and the Bryson Goodwin try. Nakora, right after halftime, the Titans that were there, they'd come back, they'd fought back, 12-10. He just attracts defenders, brings them in, sleight of hand, Nakora straight through untouched. Beautiful. Peak Sean Johnson, because teams now have to recognise his running game. The Bryson Goodwin try to get at the 40. The last 2 weeks, he has put up so many beautiful floaters, in 2 weeks to Bryson Goodwin, that just remind you of his passes, albeit not with as much zing, to Fusatua and Vartuve. That's what it reminds me of. Now, is he back at that level? Probably not. He's probably a step or two below. But we're definitely starting to see the Sean Johnson that got him that massive contract from the Warriors. Now, it's just a matter of if he can continue it.
And one of the things that we called in the preview show as well is just how the Sharks were going to attack this game. And look at where most of their tries came from. Most of them came from up the middle, a lot of forwards on the score sheet. We said that the Sharks were going to come and try and bully the Titans into submission up the middle. And that's what they did. They came with that game plan, some good lines. I mean, Dakota ran a beautiful line off that Johnson pass you were just talking about.
Yep.
Only one try on the edge. I mean, if the Sharks, if their go-to is up the middle, and they can dominate teams because they have a strong pack.
Oh,
even with the bench they've got with Hamlin ULA and Talakai and Royce Hunt as well. Maybe that's where the Sharks go to. Maybe they're not an edge team anymore.
I can't agree with you there. They've got Sione Katoa, mate. Bryson Goodwin's also no mug. Bryson Goodwin, yeah, he's a journeyman, but man, he can finish. They're an edge team still. Don't worry. They have strike power out there. But yeah, 5 tries to forwards this week. The thing you have to think about too is the Titans have Big Mo Fotuaika, who is setting himself up to be a superb player. They have Jai Arrow. They have who else? Proctor on his day, but we called it. They were going to bully the Titans through the guts. They did that. If they, when the Sharks come up against a forward pack of the Eels, of the not the Sharks, the Storm, even at the Drag. Well, we saw against the Dragons. So
okay, then let's get this one out of the way as well. Warriors Broncos. Get it all out of your system.
What did I tell you? I told you if Matt Lodge is out, switch your pick. And you didn't. You didn't listen to me, and look what happened.
I'm done. I'm done with the Broncos. I'm ending this abusive relationship. Every time I think they've changed, every time I think it's going to be different, no. Anthony Seibold and his baby Broncos hurt me time and time again. Ask me who I'm tipping next week as my best bet pick.
Whoever the Broncos are playing.
Exactly. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I can't keep doing this to myself.
In your defense, Xavier Coates, 2 tries in the first 26 minutes. You could have thought that things have changed.
No. I'll tell you for why. I'll let you get to your point in a second. One of those tries came completely against the run of play, and it was an interception. And the only reason that interception was made was because his centre had come way in and he forced Coates to come into. And the other try, yeah, great. Broncos opened the scoring. But that was the only creative try they scored. I'd go as far as saying that was the only real attacking creativity they showed throughout that 80 minutes.
I mean, it's a fair point. To be fair, their defense for the first 40 minutes was superb. Yeah. The only real attacking opportunity, and again, I didn't really see this game. I caught it on radio for the second half. But I didn't see and hear much in the first half in terms of Warriors attack outside of the Mamalo try. But that second half, I just... Look, I got this one right. We put them in the multis. Your beauty, no worries. As the CEO and the chairman, realize it, and you saw how frustrated and how upset these Broncos players were. After having that lead, how can you come out and say, after hearing all the advice coming from all the legends, after hearing, everyone from even the greatest half of all time, in my opinion, in Broncos colours, and Darren Lockyer saying Milford's done. How can you pick him over Tom Dearden? To then put Tom Dearden on the bench, tell him, hey, we're behind, go and do something, and then shatter the kid's confidence when he has a couple of errors trying to create something out of nothing. How can he still be the damn coach?
It's mental. I mean, people can go, oh, look at the injuries we have. Look at the injuries every other team has. Like, whatever excuse they can come up with, there's a counter argument to say every other team is going through the same thing. Look at the Warriors. The Warriors this week came out after this is their second game with a brand new head coach. They're missing their star fullback. 3 of their players have said, I don't want to do this anymore, send me back to New Zealand. And they've had to bring in a lone player literally 3 days before a game, and you stick him on the bench, and they still beat you. The character of the Warriors cannot be ever called into question.
Oh, hang on. Let me add one more thing to it before you run through the rest of your thoughts. Nick Karima gone after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Janelle Harris-Tavita has not played a full, probably more than 60 minutes in a year and a half at the NRL level. And then he comes on, sets up a couple of tries, gets a feel for the game, kicks the conversions. Come on. Something has to change at Brisbane. It has to change. They look great. Well, okay, maybe not great. They look fine. They look like a team that will contend for the finals before COVID. There weren't any injuries, from my understanding, during the COVID break for the Broncos. What changed?
I mean, that's what the statistics say. That's the first time that the Broncos have lost 6 in a row since the 2012 season. That 2012 Broncos eats this team alive. If anybody thinks that the Broncos are going to make some sort of late season comeback, you're so far off base. Like I tipped the Broncos this week because I looked at the Warriors and thought, no RTS, you've lost your biggest meter maker. Up steps Ken Mamalo. He filled the gap that RTS left with his meter making. Mamalo's carries off the back line, and as soon as they got fast play the balls, that was it. The Broncos fell apart. And you can see that they're trying. And it's not as if they're trying too hard and that's why things are falling apart. They're trying, but whatever they're trying is just not working. You saw Milford strip the ball. Great. Okay, that's a little bit of passion, a little bit of fire. He comes up with a strip. He races 30 metres. He gets them up over halfway and then decides to try and throw an offload out of absolutely nowhere. You have 5 more tackles. You don't need to score off every single play. And right now, your attacking stats show that you're not going to score off every play. In fact, you'd be lucky to score off every 18th play at this rate.
I just pulled up the Broncos draw. It's the battle of the wooden spoon next week. They play the Dogs. And with how, like I said, we'll get to it later. And you know what? I've got Fox Sports on the TV as we're going. The Broncos currently are $1.50 favourites. And like I said this week with the Warriors, who got out to 270, like I told all the punters, and I hope they jumped on, I hope they jump on this. If the Dogs play the way they did today against the Bunnies, they're going to put 30 on the Broncos.
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump on that as well. But I think we leave the Broncos alone. I think that we're probably not saying anything that anybody else more qualified than we are saying right now. And we move on to the Tigers and the Panthers. And Jesus Christ, what a fiery affair this one was.
Yeah, the Panthers got away with it. They did not look good. Sorry, let me rephrase, because they looked fine.
Yeah.
They did not look like the Panthers that we've seen the last couple of weeks. But you know what? A win's a win. That's how you know you have a good team. When you don't play at your best, or you don't play even remotely close, and you still win. Stephen Crichton, a superb performance. Another, 2 more tries for him. Should have, in my opinion, had a third, but that one taken away. Dylan Edwards looking as good as ever. Cleary took a step back, and I was okay with it. He took a step back and just controlled. He was the game managing half, and Luai had a blinder. I think probably his best game of the season, Jerome Luai. And yeah, we're going to talk about the Titans later. I'm going to fire up, don't worry. But the Panthers are showcasing that they're going to be in the conversation as a dark horse for the premiership this year. I have no hesitation in saying that. Now, whether they can continue playing, having these sparks of brilliance, but then also these lapses, like they did right before halftime when Eisenhuth and Talau went over in 6 minutes, I don't know. But if they play like how they did in the second half and defend like how they did in the second half for the rest of this year, it's going to be very hard for teams to score. I don't care if you put together peak Benji Marshall, 05 Benji Marshall with 06, 07, or even 16, 17 Jonathan Thurston. You put those two players together with that kind of defense, and you're struggling to get over.
Yeah, I mean, you got to credit the Tigers' character there. You go a try down literally in your first drive of the game, kick out puts one of your better forwards on his backside, and with a huge shot. And then, no more than 60 seconds later, Crichton goes over after you've managed to somehow be stripped 4-on-2 on the edge.
Yep.
I mean, you from there, you think, oh boy, here we go. But the Tigers stuck with them. They came back. The game got a little heated in a few spots towards the end, but you don't mind seeing it. I'll tell you what you do mind seeing. BJ Leilua, we're probably one of the grubbiest acts we've seen in some time, minus the Wade Egan eye rake on Latrell Mitchell just a couple of weeks ago. Just out of nowhere, I mean, I get that he's annoyed because his team's trailing. He's lost his brother to a HIA, and he didn't look like he was going to be coming round anytime soon from it. But to just throw the arm out there, what are you doing? People are calling for 6 weeks, and I think that he'd be lucky. I think he probably gets about 4 for that.
Look, I'm not going to say names, but we'll say an old friend of ours posted about it and said that those kind of things are what we need as a Tigers team. And I agree that Joey Leilua brings a lot of passion and a lot of willingness to do what he needs to do. I think that's the best way to describe it. And we saw this at the Raiders for his sparks of brilliance that he does have, and he has plenty of them. He has moments of just numbskulled, dumb moments. I think that's the most polite way to say it, so we can monetize at some point down the future. I have no issue with him heating up once he saw Appy collect his brother high. I get it. Your family member just got KO'd on the field on the same game that you're playing. To me, there was nothing in it. Yes, a penalty. I had no worries about it. But to then I think there was 3 minutes left in the game. You're down 7 points. You've got them a meter out from the try line, and you come through and clock Dylan Edwards. What are you doing? It is the dumbest thing I'll tell you what, never mind the eye rake from Egan, never mind the eye rake from Sutton. I think it's a bigger brain fade than the biggest brain fade we've seen since James Graham tried to bite off Billy Slater's ear in the grand final. That's how dumb it was. Your team still has a chance to win that game, albeit slight. And you do that. Now, he's been offered 4 weeks with an early plea. If he's smart, he takes it. If the Tigers are smart, they release him at the end of the year. Because that is dumb. That is absolutely dumb. And they have the talent. They have the talent to replace him. That's just...
It just came out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, it's not as if you can say that he was like trying to get an arm around him to stop him from playing the ball. No, it was a WWE style clothesline. It was just out of absolutely no. You sat watching the game, and then you think Edwards has maybe gone down with an injury. You think, oh, that's not good. Nobody's near him. Then you watch it back. Leilua just hit him with a forearm. What are you doing? Like I said, it killed any opportunity. And I hope to God the Tigers throw the book at him for this. Because, yes, it's a slight chance. But with 3 minutes to go, and you've got your opposition penned back, that's where you just want to be firing off the line, trying to force an error. And it's game on. You get a try, it's game on. And that, for me, just lets everyone know you go to him. If a game's tough, you go out that way because he's going to do something stupid. He's gonna blow up, and people go, "Oh, it's passion, it's passion." No, it's not. I've played in those kind of games where it's tight, and you feel like, do you know what? There may not be a result in this for me, but you don't just go around throwing your weight around. You want to do that? Stick some gloves on, get yourself in a cage, mate. You're in the wrong spot.
Look, it was just dumb. It was dumb. It was a stupid thing to do. He's going to get 4 weeks. And look, folks are going to harp on about Garner's shot on Edwards at the end of the game. I don't think there was any malice in it. Garner's trying to come in for a little bit of a cheeky dog shot, but I don't think he had any malice to try and clock him over the top. And it didn't help that Leilua just essentially dog-shotted Dylan Edwards, or as you mentioned, just clothesline Dylan Edwards. But look, can we just move on? Because we could talk about this for years, and if I keep talking about it, I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, I tell you what. Before we move on, I will say this: I really, really enjoyed watching Ivan Cleary give it to the fans. I think there's a lot of people that have come down on him for it, but I love to see a little bit of personality. We don't always have to be super professional in rugby league. Every now and again, we can have a little bit of a wind-up. And people have condemned him for it, saying it's unprofessional. So what? He showed a little bit of personality. These fans are giving him it. He gives him it back. It's not as if he's jumped out the box and swung for someone. It's a bit of a wind-up on both sides. It's a story for both players. Cleary will be telling it to people, saying he gave it to a fan. The fan says he gives it to Cleary, and Cleary gives it back. That's the be-all and end-all of it.
Look, I mean, you could argue that as a coach, he could probably show a little bit more professionalism, especially when you look at the history of Cleary and the Tigers and how he kind of got out of there, to put it politely. But yeah, if Tigers fan, and this was lit up in a ton of Tigers groups. If Cleary, if the Tigers fans are willing to give Cleary the crap, be willing to cop it back, and that's it. It was great. It was great. He's blowing kisses, pointing to the scoreboard. It's some fantastic showmanship, and it's great for the game. But from a professionalism standpoint, as a coach, I can see what some fans are angry about. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll get off this game then, and we move on to a lucky escape for the Newcastle Knights against a depleted Manly Sea Eagles, who just seem to keep on turning up. 14-12 the final score, and I tell you what, Manly had a strong shout at the end of the game to tie that up with a penalty.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to defend Adam Fanua-Blake for what he said. It came out that he called the referee an effing retard. First send-off in a while, granted it was at the end of the game. I'm not too concerned about that. Right call. One could argue Leilua should have been sent off, but you know what? Glad to see the send-off is back. Do not agree in the video referee's decision.
No.
You can say as much as you want about whether he would have had a chance to score a try. Who was it that kicked it? Funa?
Funa dribbles through for himself. Bradman Best shoves him in the back. But then he gets taken out with a shepherd anyway. So if you're not going to penalise the push in the back, you penalise the shepherd.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned about the shepherd more than the blatant push from Bradman Best. You can argue as much as you want about whether he was going to get to the ball with the shepherd or not, but it's like a kicker being drilled 3 or 4 seconds. It was 2 or 3 seconds after the kick. There was time to pull out, and Best, you saw the intent. Kick was done, and then he's cocked back and then pushed. And you know what? I think I've lost what I was going to say. No, I've got it. Never mind. No need to cut this one out. Great TV. I've done a Nathan Hindmarsh. But it went up as, look, I think I have a penalty. Can you confirm it? On-field ref just should have blown it. I think he just should have gone with his guts and blown it, because the penalty was there. Now, if Daly misses, you could argue it all you want. But it was a clear push. It was a clear infringement for every other game, every other second of that 80 minutes. So, yeah, look, I don't know. It wasn't a pretty end. It honestly wasn't a very pretty game. But you can tell that the teams are starting to learn how to keep Kalen Ponga out of it, much to the protest of my super coach team. Ponga, 18 points, 36 as captain. Thank you, sir. But, yeah, just don't kick the Ponga on kick returns, and he's not going to do crap.
Or alternatively, you just do what Manly did, and you just put it high. You hang it high into the midfield. And I tell you what, there'd be some arguments that Manly should have won that game, not just with the penalty, but 2 disallowed tries, rightly so. They were called as knock-ons. But I tell you what, if the Manly player arrives a second earlier, he's above Ponga and he takes it on either one of those occasions. And you've got to feel that the Knights have had a lucky escape this week, because Manly were in it. They were in a dogfight for that one.
For a team that lost their star in Tom Trbojevic and for 10 minutes lost Daly for a professional foul, and rightly so. I tell you what, before I keep going on that, credit DCE. Took that like a champion, knew it was coming, didn't argue.
Yep.
Called over, 10 in the bin. Yep, off you go. All right, no worries. Comes back, and 5 minutes later scores a try. Yeah, credit DCE for the way he handled himself. It's a showcase of what players should look like. Look, I got this tip right. I think we both got this tip right. Yep. I don't think I would have been upset if the Knights lost this one. I think Manly should have and deserve to win it. The Knights somehow, in that last 10, 15 minutes, were just able to scramble enough to keep them out, hold them up. Daly probably should have had his second, but Tex Hoy, Ponga made contact but missed, but Tex Hoy yanks him around, spins him. Bradman Best comes over. Best had another one with Funa. I think Funa, a surefire thing to score. Best yanking him by his jersey. Funa tries to reach out. It's too far.
Yeah.
It was a gritty, good game. A good game to watch for those who know what to look for in a rugby league game. This isn't one that you show to someone, I think, who you're trying to introduce the game to. But it was just, for me, it was fun to watch, just not for the reasons that you think. Yeah,
I tell you what, the Knights, to their credit as well, they held out. They lost Edric Lee, and then Ponga as well. I think there were an argument that Ponga could have gone maybe 10 minutes before, because he had another one where he came off the wrong end of competing for a high ball and looked like he hit the turf pretty hard and he stayed down. And then, 5-10 minutes later, same again, but this time he stays down for a little longer and they send him for a HIA. He didn't know where he was after that second one. The Knights really had to dig in there, because Manly, they're going to do it tough next week, because I tell you what, they're not going to have Adam Fanua-Blake. If they do review that footage and what is said is true, they don't have Adam Fanua-Blake. There's your biggest meter maker gone.
Well, I'm trying not to butcher the name here. Jaleesa Apps, I think, the Nine News sports reporter. She, it was heard through the Nine broadcast. It was clear as day. There's no doubt. Now, a send off is an automatic 1 week, unless the judiciary find indisputable evidence to overturn that. The fact that he's abused a referee with the language that he has, I don't see him back for at least 2, if not 3. It really depends on what the NRL are going to do and how hard they want to crack down on that.
Yeah.
In saying that, I think Jake Trbojevic should have been sent as well, not necessarily because of what he's said, but like, you cannot sprint up to a referee and berate him. I couldn't care if he was using G-rated language. You cannot berate him the way that Jake Trbojevic did to both officials. Now, the footage has just come up on Fox Sports. Daly, calm, cool, collected. As a person, really like Daly. As a player, really like Daly. Just based on that footage. But Jake Trbojevic, you cannot think. Let me quote The Simpsons. You got to think of the children. Think of the example that you're setting by sprinting up to the referee and blasting him for a decision that he didn't make, because that is on the video ref.
Yep.
That is on the yes. We've said that the referee potentially should have called that, but he's gone and said, "I think there's a foul. I think there's an infringement here. Look at it. Confirm my decision." And they essentially have overturned the on-field ref. That brings more questions of the bunker than it does of the on-field referee. And how he handled that was superb. And that's how a lot of young refs should handle that. And a lot of young refs will take tips from that. But if that were to happen in an under-14s game, an under-15s game, an under-16s game, or if, instead of a player, that's a parent, you wonder why referees don't want to continue up the ranks. It's because of crap like that. It's why Matt Chechen for a while was thinking, you know what, I'm done. I might go to the Super League. If you can remember that far back, he was ready to go because of the crap he was copping, despite the fact that he is, or was, and for me still is, the best referee in the NRL.
Yeah.
But I digress. Again, I'm trying to keep this PG. You got me fired up. Let's move on to a pretty underrated game, if you ask me, in the Bunnies and the Dogs.
Yeah, I tell you what, the Dogs, again, just like Manly, heavily depleted, maybe not got the quality that they would do, but by God, they play with heart right now. Like, they've turned up, they keep the Bunnies at a decent score level. There was a couple of opportunities where the Dogs could have pulled it back, but you got to say their defence was top notch, and I think they turn up next week against Brisbane. Brisbane don't score.
Kieran Foran, and we'll harp on about the Bunnies and everything. They did what they had to do to win. That's about as good as I can say. Kieran Foran and Brandon Wakeham are complementing each other stupidly well. I think it's probably the best halves combination that the Dogs have had since peak Hodkinson and Reynolds when they were the Origin halves. And because that was the year they went to the grand final, 2012, I think.
I think so, yeah.
When James Graham decided to take a chunk of Billy Slater's ear. They look really good. It doesn't help that they didn't have Hopewadi at fullback because Dallin, I think, looked a little iffy at times.
Yeah.
But for all the pressure that's on Dean Pay, it's not through a lack of effort from his guys. And they're playing above their means for me. And, they don't have a good roster. They don't have for me, the depth to win or, we say 16 points is a close game, but that score's blown out. Dane Gagai, scores that 95-meter intercept try in the last minute because the Dogs are trying to win. 26-10, I don't think says much of that game. And for in that first half, they had so many half breaks that the Bunnies were just able to scramble through. The Bunnies' attack didn't look great for a lot of it. It looked clunky, and the Dogs were very close to capitalising on it. Cody Walker just able to get over with the sleight of hand, I think, to knock the wind out of the sails of the Dogs. But I've got them going up to Brisbane next week, and at $2.60 odds, I'm jumping all over that every day of the week.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kieran Foran, coming back to his best. This is what happens when you take a star and you take the pressure off carrying a team off his shoulders. Because he turns up, Kieran Foran plays Kieran Foran's game, and he plays it very well. Every time he ran the football, he looked like scoring. You know, they had the opportunity where he picked it up 20 metres out, he cut inside a few players. I tell you what, he went almighty close. You know, Wickham, really good at steering the play around. For what I think it's the Dogs' first try, he just dinks it over the top. And that's a good decision to make because you can see that the South's line's already pushed up. They've already figured out you want to go to the edges. And I don't get why they want to go to the edges because, quite frankly, they don't have the talent there at the minute. Meany, not a brilliant player.
It was a carbon copy of the George Williams to Charles Nickel-Klokstad try from last week. It was a carbon copy, and it was perfect. Perfectly set. Montoya flying through. Great to see him back after the issues he's had with his knee. Yeah. Fantastic to see him back and scoring. Vitala Mariner, he's tried barreling over from close. He's starting to come back into a little bit of form. Josh Jackson, Adam Elliott, and I'm not. This is the only time that I think you'll see us talking about that video that was posted for him earlier in the week. We posted about it on the page. Put simply, is it an illegal act? No. Does it look bad? Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Like I said, no laws have been broken. It was in a private setting. If he gets punished for that, I will have serious questions for the integrity unit. It's not as if it's a Dylan Napa thing where we all remember what happened there. It's not like the Mitchell Pearce thing, which the NRL admitted they got wrong anyways, even though it was a really bad look, humping a dog.
Yeah.
If he's just in the nude in a private setting, no one's come forward with a complaint about it, and it's just someone, put simply, trying to damage his reputation, then I don't see an issue with it. If the police don't see an issue with it, I would expect Adam Elliott to file a defamation lawsuit.
Yeah, this close to his contract being up as well, you can't help but feel somebody's trying to harm his contractual value, or maybe make him look like not so much of an approachable target for some of the other suitors in the NRL. So this honestly wouldn't surprise me if it actually came from a Dogs fan who was trying to keep him at the club. Really wouldn't.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the legal ramifications of that, but I really hope that the Dogs are able to keep Jackson, they're able to keep Elliott, they're able to keep Wakeham, and Foran stays injury-free. Hopewadi still has 4 or 5 more good years in him, as does Wateni Zalesniak. The Dogs, I think, have the talent to build around. They just need to find, either bring some others through the ranks like they did through Wakeham, or just slowly start to have a peek at those who are off contract this year, have a peek at those who are off contract next year, try and poach them for some discounted prices if they want to come back home, come back to the club that they started, see what they can do. But it's tough. It's tough to be a Bulldog supporter at the moment, not because they're not playing. Not because they're playing awful football, because at times we saw today they're showing sparks of brilliance. But they're just having a torrid run at the moment. They're stone last. But like I said, there's an opportunity next week that if they get a win against the Broncos, at least on points differential, they'll jump off the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah.
So, and the Titans coming up against the Warriors side who get RTS back, they could jump up to 14th.
Yeah, and you got to think as well, if through the rest of this year they can keep themselves squeaky clean, no more scandals, fingers crossed, they secure a sponsor, get a little bit of money behind them, and they can start to fill out that salary cap. Because you just feel right now without a headline sponsor and the cash not coming in through the gates either, they're just so stripped for money that they can't possibly fill out their roster. So you've got to feel for them, but the guys that are turning up. Like,
yeah, like I said, like we said, you can't discredit the players because they're doing what they can, where they can, to be an amazing team, to an amazing group of players to support. It's just it's very hard to play, as you mentioned, with no main sponsor, so there's no money coming in. So yeah, third-party agreements, that's out the window right now for contract bargaining. Yeah, it's hard for us, harder for me than I think for you to say. You know a little bit more of the inner workings of a rugby league club than I do. But look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say in 2 years, if they can find the talent, they're a top 4 side. If they hold Foran, Waken, Papawati, Elliot Jackson.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up there then. That is round 8 done and dusted. We have took you through the games, given you our takes on them as well. If you have enjoyed the content, leave a like, drop a sub, and thanks for watching. We will see you next week to take you through the round 9 preview. We'll see you then. Bye.